Hey there, YouTube. Let's talk about ransomware payments for a little bit. If you have been following cybersecurity news, you know that ransomware over the past 3 years have just blown up in the amount of the ransom itself and the cost. I have personally seen ransoms go from $10,000 into $50,000, $100,000, high seven figures, and now it is common to see ransomware payments in the 8, and I've even seen some cases 9 figures. Why is that? And what is going to happen in this world? We are siphoning off tons of money to cyber threat actors. What is going to be the ramifications? In this video, we're getting some answers, and I'm going to cover that. I'm going to talk about some of the things the US government is doing in reaction that's just come out in the past week, what that means for us and what it means for you. So stay tuned. In this video, we're going to cover all of that and more coming right up. All right, thanks for joining. Now, if we have never met before, my name is Wes Spencer. I am a cybersecurity nerd. I'm a tech innovator. In this channel, we cover all kinds of awesome stuff. We cover cybersecurity, we cover cryptocurrency, and other things that I deem interesting and fun and things that you need to know about as well. So if you have never seen any of this, just know I've been covering this stuff since at least 2013. I did a big expose on the Silk Road takedown, how that happened, why it happened, the ramifications. I sourced all of that from the FBI affidavit. There is a link up top if you want to click into that and learn more about what happened with that. That was years ago. That thing hit like 500,000 views and it is still growing and still counting. And I'm always intrigued by the world of cybersecurity. Those of you that know me know this is my trade and I love spending a lot of time in this. And what I wanted to do is I want to talk about some new things that are coming out. Notably, we have some information that's just come out from the US Treasury. They produced a note around guidance in cybersecurity and cybersecurity payments, and I'm going to show that to you, and we're going to talk about its ramifications today, because here's what's happening. We've seen so many organizations get hit by systemic ransomware attacks where their entire network is taken down. And today's modern day of ransomware, it's not just taking the network down, but bad guys are also exfiltrating out as much data as they can from your organization. Why are they doing that? Well, I've covered this in other videos. The big reason why this is happening is very simple. What they want to do is cause as much pain as possible to you to force you into paying the ransom. In other words, if I have the ability to recover and get my systems back online and not pay the ransom, the bad guy isn't going to get anything out of that. And so what are they doing as a backup for them? They're stealing your data. And they're holding the data hostage and say, hey, we've deployed ransomware everywhere, you're shut down. And if you don't pay up, if you're able to recover, or you just choose not to pay the ransom, we're going to leak all of your customer data. Now, 2 things I'll say to that. The first thing is, in my experience, many times these ransomware actors are making a bigger deal of it than it is. I have seen instances where they claim to have a lot of data, and in truth, it is not as much as they say it is, or the confidentiality of that data is not as important as they make it out to be, because these are just bad guys. They don't know the capability, they don't know the quality of the data that they have all the time. They'll act like it's a big deal because they want to make sure that they hold that hostage to get you to pay. Second thing is, I'll say this, it's painful. In those cases where they do get all or most of your data, now you have data leaks that you're going to have to deal with. Now you have to deal with the regulation around all of that. And if you watched my video on the Uber CISO, we know that the government is paying attention to not reporting data leaks and data breaches where our customer data is involved. Yikes. That's the modern world that we're in today. So what's the government doing about it? Well, first of all, they know about this. They know it's a big issue, and they are now starting to really put teeth down into where the regulations have always been on ransomware payments, because people often pay them. Unfortunate, it's truth, but we know that that happens. We know the federal government recommends that you don't pay the ransomware, but we also know that that happens often, and the ransom is paid to get the data back, or at least to make sure that leaked data does not get actually leaked. And so this is happening a lot, and the government is starting to put their foot down on all this. I want to show you what this looks like and why this is a big issue. So right here, this was produced on October 1st, so just a few days ago, And there's a lot of information that the Treasury Department is warning us around ransomware payments and what you need to be aware of in your involvement in all this. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. You can go read it on your own. I'll put a link to this in the description down below if you want to see it. But there are some very, very important things that exist in all of this. So first of all, they're talking about, hey, we're aware that ransomware attacks are happening. We know what's coming. We know that there's been an increase. You can see right here a 37% annual increase that they have seen and 140% increase in associated losses from 2018 to 19 alone. And I can tell you 2020 is continuing to increase. From the sources that I have and those that I work with inside the industry, this is continuing to go up. So they're aware of this. The federal government knows this is a growing systemic threat that's going after all of us. And they've now produced some guidance around all of this that we have to take seriously. You cannot just say, I got hit by ransomware, no big deal. I'm just going to pay the ransom. I'm just going to charge it insurance and move on. That's not how this works. It's never how this has worked, but there are new things that are adding into this that are putting teeth into preventing you from just paying and moving on and not worrying about it. Well, what do I mean by that? So first of all, they outline some of these threat actors. The Treasury Department lists the WannaCry guys, the Lazarus Group out of North Korea, and then these dudes here, Bluendorf and Arendelle, or whatever it is that you say. I don't know how to pronounce their names. I don't care to say it. Of course, Evil Core, also known as the Sodinokibi actors. So we have seen here, they're documenting examples. This is not the exhaustive list, but this is some of the threat actors that they have put a clamp down and sanctioned. The federal government has said, these are criminals. These are people that you are not to pay. They are on the actual US Treasury and OFAC sanctions list. You may not pay these bad guys. But what's happening? People are still paying the bad guys, and that's a real problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you a couple snippets from this guidance because there's some things that you really need to know and pay attention to. And so I'm going to take a look at this, and I'm actually just going to zoom in on this a little bit. I'm going to read this to you. Listen to what it says. Facilitating a ransomware payment that is demanded as a result of malicious cyber actors may enable criminals and adversaries with a sanctions nexus to profit and advance their illicit aims. What does that mean? That is financial nerd talk for, hey, look, when you pay these bad guys, you're enabling them. The reason we, the federal government, have put a sanctions on them, we've stopped them from receiving payments. We are cutting them off from the financial arm of the Western Hemisphere. They are not to receive money. They are not to be entered into from a business perspective because we are not going to financially enable these terroristic criminals. Just not going to do it. And so they are saying when you pay them, and this is no shocker to any of us, but when you pay them, you are allowing them to advance their illicit aims. You are going to stop that. It is not going to happen. And of course, you see this down below. They also say that these payments embolden, which is true, these cyber actors to engage in future attacks, and not just them, but spinning up new and more threat actors. So every time we make a payment, we encourage them and we say, hey, we've enabled you. There is lucrative gains here, and it causes them to want to continue to get better at their tradecraft and also for new entrants to come into the game. We know that. That's not news for any of us, but what we're doing here and what the federal government is doing is they're saying enough is enough. I'm drawing a line in the sand. We are stopping this, or at least we're going to put a serious clamp down in this. Well, how does that work? You can see what they say right here is they're saying, look, if you make a payment to a known threat actor, or you make a payment to somebody and you did not know that it went to someone on a sanctions list, you are violating OFAC. And let me tell you, friends, violating OFAC is a no-no. Do not do that. I used to be a banker. I come from a banking background. One of the things that all bankers, especially in the world of financial transactions, are taught, never, never, never violate the OFAC list. Never violate OFAC regulations. When the government says someone is sanctioned, that's the end of the story. They are sanctioned. You are not to pay or get involved in that payment. There are both civil and criminal penalties. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to try to tell you what's going to happen and what could happen. I'm just telling you as a warning, don't do it. So going back to this report, there's some interesting things here. You can see those that they list that are on their SDN list. which is their specially designated nationals and blocked person list. And you can see some of these countries that have embargoes and the threat actors that act inside of them: Cuba, Crimea, Ukraine, Iran, North Korea, and Syria. You are not to mess with people that come from those areas. And so you can see them continue to talk more about this around the civil and the penalties around all of that, which would include fines, which would include potentially even worse things like that. And then on top of civil, as I mentioned, potentially criminal negligence as well. So it's serious. Nobody wants to go to jail over paying a ransomware payment. You don't, I don't, none of us do. And so what they're doing is they're even getting more specific in this. Look at what they say here. They say, as a general matter, OFAC encourages financial institutions and other companies to implement a risk-based compliance program. And then they go on to say this also applies to cyber insurance, digital forensics, incident response, and financial services that may involve paying ransomware payments. Whoa. And then you're going to see here, they say including depository institutions and money services businesses. Now, what does that mean? That is all some very specific terms that I'll get to in just a second, but I want to distill all of that and re-explain in just common language. So the OFAC is saying, hey, look, it's not just banks that are involved. If you, no matter who you are, make a ransom payment and you're not doing this in the right way and you're not following OFAC regulations, you are equally to blame. You can't claim negligence, you can't claim ignorance, you can't claim, well, I just didn't know about it. I didn't try to pay some terrorist in a sanctioned country. It doesn't matter to them. You broke the law and you are going to be subject to it, or at least you could be. They're giving this guidance so everybody knows this is a significant issue. So going back to all of this, you saw them even talk about what they say a money services business, right? Well, what is that? What is a money services business? What does that mean for all of this? Well, basically, if you go and look at FINCEN is yet another group inside the federal government. This is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. This is really important. See, FINCEN oversees money services businesses. You can see right here, I'm going to zoom in for you just a little bit. There we go. You can see FinCEN's definition of a money services business, and I'm just telling you, if you pay ransoms, you are a money services business. That's important. The reason that's important is because you are now a regulated entity. You are considered by the federal government as a financial institution, and you should not be paying those ransoms unless you know what you're doing. You already see what they said earlier in the guidance. You need to have a risk-based compliance program. It needs to be driven by all of that, and it needs to include Bank Secrecy Act stuff. It needs to include understanding how these payments are made and a reporting mechanism back to the federal government. And so this is what the money services business is all about. In fact, the main reason that an MSB even exists is to give the federal government intelligence and insight into what's happening in the world around them, the transactions that are happening, and what they call SARs, or suspicious activity reports. This is the way that the federal government understands where money movement may be occurring. That's how they get into things like understanding where things happen, such as money laundering and even things like this, paying terrorists, and how all of that works. This is how they get the insight into it, is they rely on financial organizations to give them that insight. And so I can't say, and I can't stress this enough, the federal government cares about this because they need insight into it. They want to know the activity, they want to know what's happening, they want to know who's paying who, and they want to protect and eliminate ransomware as much as they can. And one of the ways they can do that is say, look, we have regulations on this. You are not going to be paying ransoms unless you do it the right way. And you're certainly not going to pay somebody that's an enemy of the state. That's just how they interpret it. That's how they look at it. So I want to talk about all this, and I want to talk about not just the MSB definition, not just the guidance, but did you know you can actually look this up? I've got this ready for you. I don't think a lot of people talk about this, a lot of people show this, but here is OFAC's sanctions list. This is a public list. You don't have to have special access to get this. I will put a link to this in the description so that you can see it on your own. But when you pull the sanctions list search up, notice that there's a bunch of programs that you can search for. And I don't even know what a lot of these are for. Some of them are state-based. You see Iran, Iraq, and so on, Libya. So you can see some are country-based. Others have some designation. And there's one designation I want to pay attention to. Do you see right here under Cyber 2? Cyber 2 is a designated public sanctions list, and I can search for specific people here, or I can just hit the search button And I can get a list of all of this. I can even have it dumped to Excel if I want to take a full look. But these are the cyber threat actors that the federal government is aware of that you are not to pay. You are not to be involved in paying. Even if you pay one of them not knowing because it was some ransomware actor and they didn't say their name, you are still liable for that. And look at this list. It is growing and it is significant. And it is getting bigger and bigger every day. You even see some ones like Federal Security Service from, look where this is, Russia. Interesting. You can see Ukraine. You can see some that we may have the actual name for, this Nader Sadie person, Ahmad Fafi, some others that you see in here. And then you'll see some that are just generic. You'll even see some by the threat actor name that we've designated and given them, but we don't actually know who that may be yet. So for example, here's Evil Core. I can click on Evil Core and I can see the information. And notice Evil Core is Evil Core. We know where they're acting out of, but we don't know a lot of information about them. So you cannot pay Evil Core. They are on the sanctions list. You are going to be very, very, very liable making a payment to any of the people on the sanctions list unless you have designated approval to do so. And that is a very short, very small list. So why am I doing this? Why am I scaring everybody? Why are we talking about all of this? Simply because of this, my friends. I want to make sure that you are aware when it comes to ransomware and ransomware payments that you should not be making these payments if you have to pay the ransom, and please don't pay it, but if you have to pay it, and I recognize I have helped many organizations through the incident response process, and I have seen many at the end of the day say we're going to have to pay the ransom. Do not just go on Coinbase, do not just go to Gemini or Voyager or wherever and try to buy a bunch of crypto and pay the bad guy off. You can see from here, OFAC, Treasury, FinCEN, there are enough federally regulated organizations and entities that are saying you cannot do that. There is a right way to do it. There is a wrong way to do it. So what is the right way to do it? I am not here to tell you that. I will say this, start with your cyber insurance and start with your legal. Follow their guidance. Make sure that they're aware of this. Make sure they're aware of this guidance. If they say, what is that? I've never seen it before. That is a red flag. So be careful how the payments are made. Be careful when you authorize it and make sure you do it in the right way, because we are seeing that, again, they are putting a line in the sand and they are saying once for all, we're putting teeth behind all of this and you can't claim ignorance. Hey, I hope this video was helpful. I know I got scary. I know I got serious on this. I don't always do that. I love covering all kinds of different things. Would you hit the subscribe button? Would you hit the like button if you like this? Give me your thoughts back on this. If you're an IR person, a security person, or just a general enthusiast, let me know your thoughts. I want to know what you think about this. I want to get your comments and feedback. So just leave a comment down below so we'll have some information back from you. I'd love to know. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Is it going to impact us? Is this going to eliminate cybersecurity threats like ransomware once and for all? I mean, I don't think so, but might it help? It might. I'd love to know your thoughts. Leave me a comment down below. Until next time, my friends, thank you so much.